Can we talk about the Utah Jazz's 2024 summer?
That's why
Wow,
I love you
that's
so
just this
much.
is like this is when they
Uh,
start to play the song at the concert, and even the hardcores like Sam Amick are like, I'm not sure I've heard this one.
This is where this is where there's a record scratch at the concert. You better sell
Is
this,
this one of their
baby.
new ones that they're really trying to get us to like? That
Yeah, when it's the new album and nobody knows it, and then they just decide that it's a good time for a bathroom break. All right, Fred, we can't lose the people. You got to sell this. Like
We're
Utah
not going to
Jazz,
lose the people. The
let's go.
Jazz are interesting. They own every pick known to mankind.
Yeah.
They're going to have, they have tons of free agents next year, tons of cap room. And I'm not suggesting they're going to go out and sign a max guy. But how they choose to operate next year and at this trade deadline, too.
Yeah, I was going to say, even before. I mean, they were
because
aggressive on Drew Holiday. They're in this like now.
totally.
Yeah.
And so I am wondering that's kind of what I was going to bring up, Sam, where it's like they made calls on Drew Holiday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they make calls on Drew Holiday. That's showing they're showing their hand a little bit in terms of their plan being like, no, we think we're ready to be good. We think we can be good. And at the very least, we don't think we need to be bad. They own so many unprotected picks from other teams, from Cleveland and from Minnesota and from others. Like they own so many unprotected picks
Danny
from other
Ainge is not a
teams.
young man. He ain't sitting around trying to, let this thing take too long.
No, he's not. And they don't need to go out and stink because somebody else will stink for him and they'll get that draft pick. They have enough talent on the roster to where they're going to be competitive, as we saw last year. Walker Kessler is only getting better. And I am so curious to see how the Jazz deal with themselves, number one, heading up to the trade deadline, and number two, next summer. They're not going to go out and sign some massive name free agent with their cap space. But what they could do is say, oh, this huge name who has 3 years left on his deal is available, and we have a ton of picks, and we don't have to give up like any salary in order to get him. So that team can just get no bad contracts and a ton of picks, and that's what they want. Yeah, let's enter the sweepstakes. And the fact that we saw them kind of peek their head in on Drew Holiday gives you a little, it just makes me wonder, like, what's the plan? What are they going to do if they peaked on Drew Holiday? Like, who are they going to like make the full on call for? Who are they going to make the rush for? How are they going to use that room? Are they just going to take in bad contracts and accumulate more picks? Like, they have a chance to go a million different directions, probably more than any other team in the league. And they have a super aggressive GM.
Real quick, before I get it to you, Slater, like in terms of their aggressiveness, and I hadn't thought of this in a while, if you go back to like Kyrie Irving's absolute low point in terms of his PR and what was going on with him, right? I wrote or tweeted or reported at the time that like the Jazz had not crossed him off their list. Like that, I thought was so interesting in terms of their level of aggressiveness and just kind of like, just that idea that we're going to escalate this timeline and speed it up. The idea back then, last season, mid-season, when so many teams were not willing to even touch Kyrie, that the Jazz looked that direction and said, we would talk about it, was telling of Denny's mindset. And we know the way he operated in Boston. And obviously now out there in Utah with Justin Zanuck, I think for sure, they are looking for big fish to come their way.
Two biggest.
I mean, on top of it, Sam, on top of it, next summer there are going to be teams, and this trade deadline too, dying to get out of the 2024 tax for various reasons, because they're over the second apron and it restricts their resources, or because they have an owner who doesn't want to pay all of that extra money for a team that's proven to not be good enough or whatever. And what did the Jazz do this summer, right? They looked at a team that was trying to get out from under the tax, and they said, yeah, Atlanta Hawks, just give us John Collins for nothing. Right. We'll just take John Collins. And they just got John Collins for free. And Collins had a bad year last year. He had the worst year of his career in Atlanta last year. But nobody expected Collins to just, after all these years of being on the block, just to go for free for Rudy Gay, who they waived in a second round pick. And that would be it.
Especially in the context
for the 14th roster spot in Golden State right now. Did you see the John. I saw some John Collins like little soundbite where it was clearly like he didn't mention the Hawks or mention Trae Young, but it was like it is just so nice to be playing with a team that wants to share the basketball. Oh, it's like so comforting. I feel it was like a finally we share it. We
and
want
that's
to win.
the stuff where I think the league still believes that John Collins is John Collins and fully understands that the Hawks context last year, from trade to the front office transition to all the other stuff that was happening, Quinn Snyder coming in midseason, that that is largely what led to John having a down year. That was a hell of a trade for the Jazz.
Yeah, and to me, the two biggest things that have sped up this process for the Jazz was the fact that in the trades, they got two assets that at the time of the trade, I'm talking about the Donovan Mitchell trade and the Rudy Gobert trade, weren't considered like sparkling assets. Lauri Markkanen, who now, looks like an all NBA type, third team type guy. And then Walker Kessler, what pick was he? Like 18, 19, 17, something like that.
Yeah.
You would have said, it was like when we talked about the Minnesota package, it was like all the unprotected picks. And certainly when we talked about the Cleveland package, it wasn't like, wow, they got Markkanen. That Markkanen just felt like salary filler. Well, that's their core moving forward, right? It's like it's Markkanen and Walker Kessler. Like you hit on those, you speed up your process.